Hi, everybody, and welcome back to FLINT Talks. We've just had a really great discussion about associations and what we as young people can get out of them. We were very lucky this month to be joined by Craig Young of the Technology Users Association, TUANZ, who kind of sits as the father figure to the FLINT group and has enabled us to be a part of FLINT and really push forward with everything that we've got going on there. Today we talked about what an association is, so don't feel like you need to know all about associations before you listen to this chat. We do start with what an association is and how they exist and why. And then we've talked about what associations can provide to their members, including some really nice examples about what we as FLINT and the TUANZ organization can also offer you as individuals or as potentially businesses if you're like Caius and starting up your little own side hustle going on. So yeah, we'd really love for you to have a listen. And if you are interested in joining FLINT as we are an association, please let us know or reach out to any of the team and we'll help you there. So yeah, have a great time and let us know if you've got any questions or comments after you've listened to the episode. Alrighty, everybody. Hello and welcome back to another episode of FLINT Talks. For those of you that have listened to a few of our episodes before, you may notice a slight change today in our lineup. We have been joined by the wonderful Craig Young from the Tech Users Association of New Zealand. Our great friend Derek was unable to join us for today, so we've brought in a substitute. So yeah, what we'll do first is we'll introduce ourselves so that everyone knows who we are, and then we'll crack into today's topic. So Craig, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Tēnā koutou karua, you too, Caitlin and Kais, and tēnā koutou katoa, everyone else. Ko Craig Young, tako ingoa, ko te kouwhaka, haere, mātua TUANZ. So I'm the CEO of TUANZ, have been now for 9.5 years. It seems like a long time. It's the longest job I've ever had, actually, over my career. But I run the Technology Users Association, and that's what a CEO does, I suppose. But in the association space, you do all sorts of things as a CEO. You're not just the figurehead, you're not just leading the organization, you're also helping out at events, putting chairs out, doing whatever has to be done. So that's who I am and what I do.
Awesome. And Caius?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I'm Caius. I'm going through a bit of an identity transition, and so I'm figuring out the best way to brand myself. Today I'll go with full-time traveler, part-time solopreneur. That's what I'm rolling with for now. So back to you, Caitlin.
Yes, perfect, Caius. Love the buzzwords rather than, I can't remember what you said last time, just unemployed. So yeah, this is definitely a better step in the right direction from that. And yes, hello everybody. My name is Caitlin and I am the head of customer success at an online learning platform called Intuito. So yeah, I help people put their learning online, which is pretty cool. And we operate in the association space, so that was part of the reason why I was really excited to have this chat with Craig and Caius today, and hopefully bring some more information about associations and how they work to everybody that might be listening now and in the future. So to kick it off, I thought we might jump into some of the basics, such as the definitions of things. People that might be early in their careers and things, might not have any idea what an association is, what they do, why they exist. So I thought we'd throw it to Craig as our association expert on the talk today. What is an association and why do we have them?
Oh, thanks, Caitlin. Look, it's a really good question. Associations are what you might call a subgroup of this legal thing called an incorporated society. And basically anything to do under that space is an organization that's owned and driven by members. So you can think of incorporated societies being like the tennis club or the Rotary Club, or all those sorts of things where it's not owned by shareholders, it's managed and owned, well, owned is not quite the right word, by its members. And so what you do is it's basically an association is where you get a bunch of like-minded people that come together and say, we want to meet regularly, we want to have a vision, we want a specific purpose, and we'll join together as a group. And then you can go through various stages of organization. You can be a loose gathering of people, You don't have to do anything formal. You can create a constitution, you can be a trust, you can be an incorporated society, you can be a charity. In fact, you can be more than one of those at the same time. So if you think of us, the Technology Users Association, we're a membership association, so our members guide and direct what happens with the association. We're registered as an incorporated society, and basically where it came from was a bunch of guys that look like me, old white fellas, back in 1985 in Wellington, decided that they wanted to get together and actually talk about what they could do with these new technologies that were coming, mainly around telecommunications. And so they said, well, let's form an association, we'll form a group, and we'll get together every couple of months and we'll figure out and we'll learn this stuff together. Because that's the other thing you can do in association, is that it is a gathering place for people who wouldn't always meet up. So, you know, in the world, well, if you just take telecommunications, for example, I mean, everyone's aware, in particular in the demographic for Flint, you know, of the three mobile companies, One, NZ, Spark, and 2 Degrees. They are fierce competitors, right? And anytime they get together, they have to be very careful if they're trying to do things together about competition and anti-competitive behavior. But if there's a group called something like TUANZ where they can come together and meet and talk about educational and general things, that works really well. They can do that. And so that's what an association is all about, a gathering of a community with a purpose and passionate people wanting to do things.
Oh, well, yeah, it definitely sounds like you're passionate about the association space, which is great to hear since you've been in it for so long now. I didn't realize that it got up to almost 10 years. We'll have to throw a party for you soon. Awesome. So now that we know the ins and outs of what an association is and why, I thought I might throw it to Caius to start having a little bit of a chat about what associations that we might be in or that we know of. So Caius, if you want to let us know what you think.
Yeah, so I'll start off with the obvious one, obviously part of Flint. Thank you, Craig, and for letting me join like 18 months ago. Flint is kind of my predominant association that I'm in now, and the main purpose, I think, is bringing young people in the digital space together. I tend to think of Flint and other organizations as like a bit of a greenhouse for plants or digital plants in the Flint space, in the sense that a greenhouse provides the right environment with the right care, i.e., sunlight, water, etc. And Flint and other associations will provide the right environment for growth and learning opportunities and knowledge and connecting. So that's a little bit about Flint. I'm outside of Flint. I'm a part of a few other ones. One of them being the Auckland Property Investors Association and the Auckland Chamber of Commerce, which fit other aspects of my life that I'm interested about. And they're a bit different to Flint in the sense that when I started with Flint, I was working in an organization that didn't have many young people. And so it was nice to meet other young people at the same stage in their journey. The other ones gave me access to people who have done what I want to do, essentially. And I've had some pretty cool, I won't say adventures, but pretty cool experiences with them, being able to like, I look back to the Auckland Property Investors Association and I say I've been through a house and some guys walked me through his exact development, told me exactly how he's made $7 million on it. So those are the sorts of things I do in my spare time.
Perfect. And yeah, obviously associations are great in your work life, but as Caius has mentioned, they can be very helpful outside of that as well. Craig even mentioned earlier that sports clubs and things, kind of associations that people might not realize are associations, which, yeah, really important in a lot of people's lives, especially around that social aspect. And then, you know, we've got things such as student unions. If you're at university, especially if you're living on campus, they're always quite important to be a part of. And, you know, they put on events and activities and everything that you can think of and look after students' general care and well-being, which is pretty cool. Another one that a lot of people might not realize is an association is the AA, where you can get your roadside breakdown service and things. They're actually called the Automobile Association, but no one knows that. They're just the AA and that little yellow logo that they've got. And then, yeah, other things that we've found through Flint, we recently did an event with the Auckland Young Farmers, who are a subset of the New Zealand Young Farmers Association, which was really great for us to kind of get a peek into a world, well, for me personally, into a world that I would never be a part of. I am a city girl through and through. So it was very interesting, like Craig said, to get to meet people that wouldn't normally come together and, yeah, hear about their lives and learn a little bit from them. And so, yeah, all of us have kind of touched on a little bit about what we can get from associations, but I thought we might dive into a little bit deeper what associations provide to their members. So jumping back to Kaius here, who has talked about Flint a little bit, what are the main things do you think people can get out of Flint if they don't already know what Flint is?
I think, yeah, I kind of touched on it before. It's an environment to meet people at an early stage in your career. You can meet them through in-person events. We've got a few coming up. One of my favorite in-person events was actually the Micro Hackathon, which helped me broaden my view of AI, but it also helped people in my group that we actually won last year. They weren't as familiar with AI tools and what you could do with them, and so they were empowered from that event to go ahead and explore some of these technologies that they didn't necessarily have the time to go and see or enough value to go and see before. They're like, oh, it sounds cool, but like, I don't want to go through the whole learning curve. So it was an accelerated learning curve for them. I guess that's the kind of learning component of it. I think if I broaden it out a little bit more and think of some of my other experiences, it does give me a constant stream of information in regards to like the regulatory environment. Like if I think back to some of the real estate stuff, it's changing all the time, and I get a constant stream of newsletters as to, hey, this is what you should look out for. Do you need help? And then I can kind of reach out to A, the association themselves, or B, people I know within the association. So it's a real nice value add if you think about it in terms of like, okay, where are my goals and what are the key components of my life, and then finding people around that. And it's just the quickest way to do that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And Craig, I know there's probably a whole other world of things that we haven't touched on yet. So did you want to talk a little bit more about what else people could get from associations from your view?
Yeah, I think it's a good to talk from personal experience. I like Caius. Actually, I've just joined the Chamber of Commerce in Auckland, Caius, because I thought it was a good thing to be involved with. And as an association, we're really just a small business, so we're interested in those sorts of things as well. And that's an example of where you can get information that's going to help you. And I think if you come back to your property investor group, there are different types of associations. So there are what you would call industry-based associations. So that's where you might belong to an organization that represents you as an industry. So you think about master plumbers. So that's representing plumbers, right? So it's quite clear what that does. Or in our space, NZ Tech. So that is about developing the technology industry, and they represent the technology companies to government stakeholders. So you've got industry bodies. Then you've got what's called the professional associations. So they are ones like the Chartered Accountants Institute. So they're representing accountants, the Lawyers Society, and in the technology space, the IT professionals. So they're the ones you go to if you want a credential. So if you want something after your name, and you'll see I've got a credential after my name, and that's from the American Society of Association Executives, Chartered Associate Executive. Can't remember. Geez, I've got the certificate on the wall, and I had to go through an exam. 6 weeks. No, actually, sorry, it was 3 months training, study, and then passing it. So that's where you go. That professional space. So that's really for people and individuals. The third type of association is sort of what we are, which is more around the users or the people who you're representing are a group of people that are using something or being engaged or involved in something. And it might be the tennis club because they're using the tennis courts, or they're involved in developing tennis programs. It might be the local conservation group. Like where we used to live in Beach Haven, there's a Kaipatiki group that looks after the area. So it's joint purpose about doing something together. Or in our case, TUANZ. We're a users group. We're representing people who use technology. So you got those sorts of things. You get different things out of each of those. So you might belong to one or more of them. One story I want to share is I came from a corporate background. I worked for many years in technology within tech companies, but also telecommunications companies. I wasn't on the telco side. I was on the tech side and then the commercial side. And so when I jumped from corporate to running an association, I had no idea how to run this thing because it's so different. You're pretty much by yourself. You're pretty much, things are different. You've got members, not customers. So your members might be paying you once a year for things that they want rather than, constantly selling stuff. So you've got a whole different way of doing it. And so I was like, what am I going to do? I mean, I really wanted to do this job and I wanted to do it well. So I looked around and saw what association could I join as an individual running an association. There's lots of associations in this. So I joined an association called the Australasian Society of Association Executives, or a mouthful. It's AUSA. It's actually a cross Australia New Zealand organisation. And so I started going to their events where I started mixing with people that weren't in technology. They weren't the subject matter expert that I was. They were doing associations. So they were running the Medical Cannabis Association, master plumbers, master builders, financial consultants. And I could go on. There are associations for everything. So we often talk about AUSA as the Association for Associations. But what I started to learn was I learned from other people who were doing the same thing as me. It wasn't a different area. So we weren't talking about mobile coverage, although everyone always asks me about that, the fact that mobile doesn't work, or should they be Google or Microsoft, and I always tell them I hate Outlook, but that's beside the point. But they were doing the same things as we were. So they were worried about events. They were worried about membership. They were worried about engaging. They were worried about, how does your board work? How do you get people on your board? How do you make sure you've got people who are representative? All those sorts of things that we shared in common. And that for me really said that's the value, the real strong value of associations. You're meeting people who are outside of your particular work area, have a shared interest and can help you and can share their knowledge. And as Caitlin knows, I've become very involved in that association. I'm the vice president of it now. And I think it's every time I come across somebody who's just starting in the association space, I say, get yourself involved in that because then you're going to learn. And that comes back to what you were talking about, Kais, the one about the property investment. You're getting education, you're meeting other people, and you're building those networks so that when you do run into difficulties or you just want to learn something new or you just want to bounce something off somebody, you've got people around you, you can do that, who will help you and will help you in a way that it doesn't impinge upon what you do or the area that you're working in.
Great. Yeah. Just thinking about, I was at one of their events this week down in Wellington, which was really great. And even though we're kind of there because a lot of associations use our product, it's also just been great for me to be there to learn about associations as a whole. Definitely something that I hadn't even considered, didn't really know anything about before I started working with them. So it's been great just being involved and also on the fringe, I would say, because it's, even though I'm not a member, it's helped me so much to learn about how they all work so that I can hopefully provide some more value with our product to them, which has been really cool. And that kind of brings us to our main topic of this chat, now that we know what associations are and why they exist and what they can provide to their members. And I guess the key purpose of this talk here was to let people in the FLINT network and wider know why we should really be using associations to benefit our careers. And so FLINT is a really great example of an association that you can be a part of that's going to help. Obviously, as we've mentioned, we provide the networking. So I would never have met Caius if it wasn't for FLINT or Derek or potentially Craig, getting to know him as well as I have and bouncing all my ideas off of him like I do sometimes at random hours of the day. So FLINT's really, for me personally, has been able to bring a lot of like-minded people together. We've got members from Air New Zealand and Amy, who's just gone over to France, who's been sharing wonderful stories about her journey there and at a company that has 27,000 employees all in the same location, which I thought was insane. Sounds like it's a whole little mini town in the middle of the airport over there, which is crazy to see. I'd have to go and visit it one day. And then we've got people working in the mental health space and in recruitment and all that. So it just opens that world of opportunity if anyone does have any questions about different industries or different experiences they might have. We've got people that we can turn to that we know and already have that connection with, which is really cool. And so, yeah, maybe jumping back to Caius first, do you want to give any more examples or stories about how associations have helped you, or how you think, they might help you with your, what did you call it, your selfpreneur adventure?
I said solopreneur,
Oh,
but
I was close.
solopreneur. I'm not really part of like an official association for like e-commerce, but I am part of a bunch of communities. So like essentially it's the same value, meeting people, asking people questions, etc., etc. But it's people across the globe. Like a lot of them are from the States, know a few people from New Zealand, Australia. When I was in Bali, I caught up with a few people in Bali. They're all part of the same community. I think in terms of like some cool Flint examples, and one of the unique things I find about Flint, it's got the TUANZ component, right? So with the TUANZ component, I feel like I have access to opportunities that I wouldn't necessarily have had at an early stage in my career. The two that really stand out for me is, Craig let me be a part of one of the board meetings, and he doesn't know this, but I had like when I was a graduate working in corporate world, I built a diagram of the industry and pieced together all the different all the professional bodies that I knew, and put together a list of the who's who. I can't remember if you were on it, Craig, but when I was when I was in that meeting, I would kind of hear about NZ Tech being another organization and people from additional people people are big in the industry, and then I was connecting the dots in my diagram that I didn't have, and I was fascinated just sitting there in the corner just being like, oh, that makes sense here, this connects to there, and this is quite cool. The other one, which I had to unfortunately pull out of, sorry, Craig, I was really looking forward to it, was being part of a constitutional working group and just hearing some of the conversations that go on to how you will encourage the right behaviors to achieve an outcome in 3 to 5 years were fascinating. I won't bore you with some of the conversations because I feel like that's quite niche to me in terms of how the legal framework can encourage or discourage institutional knowledge and whatnot. So those are the couple cool things I've got from Flint, and I really enjoyed it. So it's like best of both worlds. You meet young people, but you also get a glimpse into what 5 to 10 years down the line looks. And that's, if you can find an association that does that, then I fully encourage anyone to get involved.
Yeah, and I mean, Craig, you've already told us a couple of stories about how associations have helped you, but maybe you want to, flip it over and talk about how you, as TUANZ and, obviously creating Flint, are working to help people like Caius and myself in our careers.
Yeah, well, maybe it'd be quite helpful to also just to talk a little bit about, where associations have come from and where we're heading, and then we can talk a little bit more later, perhaps around what does the future look like for associations. But I'll leave back to you, Caitlin, to bring up. But in the 50s and 60s, there was this generation of people that felt that they needed to give back, and they belonged to, that belonging to an organization, whether it be a church or something like Rotary or Lions, there's all these service organizations. That was a big value for that particular generation. And partly that was to do with, you want to meet people, you need to network, and you need community around you. The shift from going into suburbs and moving around, that's not the same anymore. There's, different generations have come through. I mean, I'm right at the end of the baby boomers. I have to admit, I was born in the very last year of baby boomers, so I'm not even a Gen X. I'm on the cusp, we'll put it that way. But that's changed over time. You think about it now, you as an individual have access to so much information online. Simply Google, Chat GPT, whatever you want, you can get information. You can also connect with people. I mean, I know young people who are now living overseas because during COVID they met somebody on a gaming channel, struck up a relationship, and are now living with them in other countries. So, there are other opportunities that you have, and that's really tricky for an association because we have to figure out where we're going. But the thing about Flint, so TUANZ, it'd been around a long time. People knew who we were in a small environment. And when I started 10 years ago, well, 9 years ago, it's 10 years this year, you're right. We hosted one of our events in Auckland, and there was about 100 and something people there. And one of the precursors, one of the young women who was there, who happened to come along, was standing beside me at the back of the room, and she looked at the room and she said to me, "Craig, where do I fit in here? They all look like you. There's no one that looks like me." And there was another gentleman on my left-hand side who sort of overheard the conversation and said, "You know what? She's right. How can we help do something about this?" And my board at the same time was like, "Where's the next generation of our leaders coming from?" And so Flint had already been in existence, but really wasn't going anywhere, because what happens when you start something like this, if you're volunteers, you're full of passion, you're excited, and you get into it, and then life gets in the way because you just get busy, things change for you. And that's where the strength of someone like TUANZ comes along, because we are in place. We do have staff, we do have longevity, we have processes. And so we created Flint to reach that 18 to 35. We're very strong on the fact that, it must be gender equal across everything we do. And we're moving into cultural equality as well in that environment. But that's what we've done with Flint. And we can then leverage the volunteers like yourselves, Kaius, Caitlin, and all our chairs. You can come in, be passionate for 2 or 3 years as your career changes, and then you can move off to do something else if you want. But we give it the stability so it continues on. So Flint's been going now for about 8 years in Auckland. So, we've been able to move through those teams. And we set it up because exactly what you've been talking about is finding a safe space for people who are in the beginning of their career, who want to meet other people who are passionate and interested in this digital future. That's basically what it is. It's a community of people that want to be involved in this digital future in any way, shape, or form they want. And Caitlin's right. They could be in HR, they could be in legal, they could be in tech, they could be a coder, but they all want to know how to make this thing work, and they all want to make networks.
Well, that's been a great summary, Craig, of what Flint is. And yeah, just speaking for myself, and I can probably talk for Caius a little bit here, it has been really valuable. And, we've had so many opportunities out of it, the board meetings and things. I also sat on one, I think early last year, and it was really, really cool to see something that, in my position at work now, I would never get to do because we don't have a board. So really great to be opened up to those different experiences. And, this podcast here, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Flint, because we would never have met the people and had the idea to start talking about tech and how it affects everything we do in our daily lives. So yeah, I think this has been a really valuable conversation. Thank you guys so much for being here. Craig, for taking your time, even though it was quite last minute, but thank you for jumping in and joining us on the chat today. So for everyone that's listening, obviously associations, you just need to find the right one for you and your situation now. And, like Kaya said, it might be something not related to your working life at all. There might be more social ones that you can join. But if you do have any questions, and especially if you aren't currently a Flint member and you're interested in what we can offer you, please feel free to reach out to us, or you can go onto the Flint website, or by association, the TUANZ website, since we kind of sit on there anyway. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you and get you along to some of our upcoming events. The micro hackathon that Caius mentioned earlier, we're actually doing that again in May. So that's going to be coming up really soon, now that I think about it, in about 6 weeks from when this episode is released. So we're very excited, and by then we might have some of the advertisements out, so you'll be able to start signing up. But yeah, other than that, thank you both for joining me, and we will see you all at our next month's FLINT Talks, whenever that might be released.
Ngā tiwa.